Hello and welcome to this morning, well, this afternoon's Wise Wire. This afternoon, I am joined with Tony May, who I may or may not have served when I worked in Orders of Croydon. Tony is an absolute inspiration and one of my biggest supporters. That sometimes on a Friday when I'm feeling a little bit low, something will pop into my messages and there's a message from Tony just telling me that the light of the world is shining. And that is just such a gift to receive. But as usual, the show is not about me. It is about my guest. So I pass over to the most positive man I know, Tony May. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Tony May. I'm out of South London, lovely South London. I come from a football background. It's been what I sort of always wanted to do from apparently I was in my mum's womb. She said I was kicking. So yeah, the majority of what we'll probably talk about today is football, the journey, the reasons I set up sort of like a company, Play Football 24/7, and a few little side hustles that I threw in there just for a little bit of fun.
And I love it. And of course, I love it because the first football team I ever physically met was FA Cup final, Crystal Palace. You'll be able to tell me the date. And I served Ian Wright and his girlfriend at the time. She was tiny. And I helped her choose an outfit for the FA Cup final. So, yeah, I don't know what year that was, but it's a long time ago. It was a long time ago. But there'll always be a place in my heart, though I'm not a big football fan, purely because my daughter plays lots of other sports. But there'll always be a little place in my heart for Palace. I can't help it. Grew up in Epsom, closest to, well, I guess Wimbledon. But yeah, let's not fight there. How did you get into football? And then what was that pivot? I know you pivoted. I know the story, but a lot of people don't. So that pivot and why you set up, and I can't remember the number. Is it 24/7?
Correct. Yeah, so I started there was a little, it was called Little League. So literally you went along to these trials and everyone had to get picked. So they were like, I think 6 teams, and like it was like ambers, reds, greens, light blues, dark blues. And so everyone had to get picked. And I remember I was picked to play for the ambers, and it was like, you come running home to mum, I've been picked. Well, you were going to get picked anyway. And it sort of started there, and it was just like literally everywhere. I used to kick around outside my house on a wall, and one day the guy came out and was really angry, and he said, look, I'm going to give you this football, please go to the park and don't kick against my wall. And it was Arsenal football, and that was like he'd given me like 10 bars of gold. It was just like everywhere I went, that football went. And that's how the journey kind of just started. I'd like just obsessed. I'd sit in front of the TV and just watch football like constantly. If I walked, past the park, I'd stop and I'd watch wherever I could join in and play. Even with the adults, when I was like really young, I would join in. It was just like a crazy addiction. So that's where it sort of started.
It's brilliant because growing up in South London, there's not a huge amount of green spaces, are there? And it's not the easiest. If I think back to Croydon, I mean, it's concrete jungle pretty much. Yeah. So finding kick against the wall, I think we all grew up doing that, but finding those green spaces must have been quite challenging.
I was lucky because either side of where I live, we've got 2 parks. So they weren't the greatest, right? Don't get me wrong, right? They weren't like hills, and the dogs used it as their playing fields, and but it was like Wembley. You put down your coats and whatever you could find for goalposts, and we just play and like till it got dark. And yeah, it was good.
So what happened? Because like you're on this football path, and you're heading towards going semi-pro or pro.
So I was lucky enough for me. I got scouted by Crystal Palace, and I went in there as a schoolboy. So that was like the team I supported. When you're training, you're seeing all your idols driving out, and you're kind of saying like, this is what I want to be. And then your idols would sometimes come over and give you a bit of advice. And it was just like, wow, this is the best thing ever. And then I sort of kind of, I had a group of friends who weren't into football. And I started like, knocking around with them. And I wouldn't say I ever lost a passion for it, but a little bit of me just kind of like wanted the excitement of hanging out with my friends and not kind of like sort of, training. So it didn't work out at Palace, and then I dropped in to non-league football. I ended up at a club in Hertfordshire called Boreham Wood, and it was just a whole world apart from what I'd known. I had to get 3 trains there. I had to, as soon as training finished, I had to run home, went to the train station. Otherwise, I'd miss the last train, and it was just a whole new world. It was really, really crazy. And that's where the sort of journey started off, trying to reinvent myself and like saying, this is what I love. This is what I'm going to do. For me, it was never about money. It was never about fame. It was just that I had a real deep love sort of for the game.
And so how did you, after Boreham Wood, I mean, that's a horrendous journey, but after all that training in Boreham Wood, how did you make that leap to being a football scout yourself? Because that's actually, I mean, I love your posts. I love watching what you're doing. I think it's phenomenal. But how did you make that leap? And then how did 24/7 evolve?
So it came about. It was a guy at Boreham Wood who I was 17 when I made my first team debut, and they was all seniors. And this guy always used to take time out and talk to me. It could be quite hard on you, but we'd always sort of say, boots should be clean, be on time. And at the time, you kind of think, oh, really? But as time progressed and I sort of followed, what he was saying, I kind of found myself like playing all the time. Managers always wanting to sign you. You'd go into a side and you'd say something and the other players would listen. And I kind of had a good core of people around me who sort of were always pushing me to do better. We'd always pick up the phone to a manager and say, look, I've got this lad, have a look at him. He's worth having a look. And I kind of felt to myself, what can I give back? Because there's going to be 20 of me out there wanting to be pros, wanting to make it, maybe not having the guidance that I had. So could I be that person to give them that kind of guidance and help them? It's kind of like just having that network of picking up the phone to someone and saying, this has happened, how do I deal with it? Or this is going on, what should I do? And a lot of young players, they don't have that. Then they do things and then they get tarnished with, he's got a chip on his shoulder, he's got a bad attitude. And it's kind of like they just don't know what to do, And so play football 24/7 was the fact that I played football literally 24/7. It was near enough. I played 7 days a week. And I just felt that I wanted to start something where anyone who wanted to play football could pick up the phone, email, and we'd find them a place to play football and at what level that they were going to be comfortable competing at. So that's how Play Football 24/7 came about.
So tell us more about what 24/7 is, because I know you know it, I know your friends know it, but the audience don't. So explain what 24/7 is and how somebody could get in touch and what it can do for someone.
So basically, we sat down with a lot of ex-pros who got involved, a lot of Crystal Palace players, and we started setting up showcase matches. So I reached out to managers who I'd played with, who are now managers. I played with them, they're now managers, coaches, and sort of said, look, setting up this game, I've got these young players, come down and have a look. You might find a gem there. And it started off, you sort of had 5 managers would come down because they're your mate, you'd catch up with them and then think, oh, I like him. And then it's sort of, you start off with a bare 22 players and then it started to grow. And we started to advertise sort of, on LinkedIn and reaching out. And agents started contacting us and saying, look, I've got players. Can we put them in a showcase game? Yeah, brilliant. Funnily enough, that cup final that Ian Wright played in, John Solarco played in it, Andy Gray played in it. They're 2 guys who came down and actually managed to our showcase sides. So that was huge. The sort of advice they could give the boys, the boys sort of, not being old enough to remember them in the cup final, but Googling them and thinking, oh my gosh, this guy played, against Liverpool and, scored against Liverpool in the semi-final. He's played against Man United. It's priceless, what they can do. And it just grew. And then we had league clubs start contacting us and saying, look, we've got some lads, we want to sort of get out on loan. Can you help us? So we started getting the contact with the league clubs. So any guys we had that we felt were good enough, we could pick up the phone to them and say, look, would you be willing to take a look at him? And just over the last couple of years, it's just evolved like it's just super quick, which is good for us.
But it's not just boys, is it?
No, it was funny enough. I had a young lady reach out to me, and I was kind of like, "Oh, this is new. What do I do?" Now I'm out of my comfort zone. But after a little bit of research, and I had a good friend who was managing a top side, and I sort of reached out to him, and he sort of gave me the advice. And then through that, I've had other female players sort of contact me. And listen, anyone who wants to play football, I'm willing to help. Um, it's my passion. It's what I love doing. If somebody wants to do it, I'll happily guide them, and hopefully they get to where they want to be. That's just my aim. That's just my goal.
And it's brilliant. But you don't just do that. And this is what people probably don't know about you. And this is how we actually started communicating, reconnecting. Is you've got an entrepreneur, I can never say it this morning, an entrepreneurial side, because it's not just Tony May Football Scout. It's not just Tony May 24/7 football. It's Tony May, a serial entrepreneur, because you also have other businesses. And I wondered if you could explain, one, about the other businesses, but two, the passion that drives you to keep reinventing and keep pushing forwards, because it's incredible to watch. It really is.
So yeah, I fell into it by accident. It was funny. One of my friends gave me about 2,000 white t-shirts and said, "Oh, can you get rid of them?" And one of my friends suggested, "Go and do a car boot sale." So I went along to this car boot sale, and we sold the t-shirts for like £1, and we sold every single t-shirt. And I kind of thought, wow, this is something I really love to get into. So it started there. Then I started going into like sort of more luxury stuff. And then with the football connections I had, I used to reach out to the players and they would purchase. And then I thought to myself, football, for the whole football side isn't about making money. It's not about making money. It's about sort of doing good, giving back what I had. Let me pass it on to someone else. So I felt, I can start a business sort of doing sourcing luxury items and sort of selling them on. So that's what I started out doing, and now we sort of added pre-loved to it. So we now have a big client base where people come to us to sell their luxury items, and then obviously we take a commission. So it's just gone like that's just gone crazy. That sort of like in the last couple of weeks, it's just been like non-stop. But nothing will ever sidetrack me from the football, because I always say it goes hand in hand in what I have to sell. The majority of the people who buy it are in the football industry, so it works really well for me. So yeah, it's good.
So if you think back to that little boy kicking the ball against the wall, what would you say to him now? I know it's a great question.
Yeah. God. Do you know what it was? It's kind of really, it's really weird because like when I lost my dad, he passed away. I kind of didn't have a purpose. And then when my mum passed away, there was like nothing. It was just an empty hole. And I can remember not going out. I was somebody who partied at the weekends. I would socialize. I didn't go out. I just stayed at home. The only thing I done, and that was so people wouldn't think anything was wrong, is I went to football.
Right.
So I continued the football, because if I didn't go to football, people would have thought, hold on a minute, something's wrong. So all I would do, there were times and there were days when I wouldn't get up. I'd get up, shower, and go to football, come home, and then stay in bed. And then I just remember, like, I kept promising one of my friends, I'm going to go out. And it was like about a year. And then I said, oh, yeah, we go out on Saturday. And he goes, no, we won't. And I goes like, yeah, we will. And I remember sitting on my bed and saying to myself, if my mum was here right now, what would she say to me? And she wouldn't want me like this. This wasn't her plan for me. All through, my childhood, being that boy kicking and all, she never forced me to do anything I didn't want to do. They didn't understand the whole football path, which was fine, but they always supported it. And I sat there just thinking to myself, this is not what my parents worked hard for. This is not what they'd want for me. And that was like the shining light, and it kind of like just flicked a switch in me. And I kind of said, as a young boy, I had dreams, aspirations. I was going to be successful. There was no two ways about it. So I kind of just said, reset and let's start again. And then that was like that was a moment that I think everything from my childhood came back to me of what I'd always aspired to do. I'd never aspired not to do well at things. And then I have a nephew who, you know, he's growing up and he's looking at what I'm doing. And it's really important for me to sort of show him, you know, be a good role model for him and show him what, you know, the right paths and everything. So it's sort of, yeah, the things that I really focus on.
I honestly respect, because the grief cycle is something that you bounce around and nobody knows how you're going to react. I am still very lucky, in touch wood. I still have both my parents, and I can't imagine what you've gone through. I can empathize to a point, but I can't imagine. I know I'm going to face it.
Yeah.
You know, death is inevitable, and it's like, oh gosh, I wonder how I will react. So, you know, my heart goes out to you on that. It really does. What's inspirational is, one, the mindset reset, you know, that thing of pulling yourself together, doing it, and actually having a purpose of your nephew. And I get that. My purpose is my little one, you know, turning 9. Yeah, she's a tween. But making her inspired and knowing that she can be whatever she wants to be. So my hat off to you. So on that note, I wondered, if you've talked about your parents, who else has inspired you along the way and helped you get to where you are?
Do you know what? The list is endless. It's really funny because I met a guy who played for Palace, and I always remember him saying, "Good people meet good people." And if you met any of my previous coaches, they will probably say to you, "You should have done better." You know, that's great, and that's a comfort to know that, you know, I was good enough to play. They thought I was good enough to play at a higher level. But I always say to myself, if I'd have made a different turn or taken a different path, some of the people that I met, I would have met them. And I've met some absolutely phenomenal people that, like, you know, we're talking everyday people who, you know, they're scaffolders, you know, they work in the local, you know, just people who, you know, when you're in and around them, the way they make you feel, there's no reason for me to sort of be down in life, even at you know, my lowest moments. Two of the guys who are my good friends now, they came to find me. They couldn't. My phone was off. They couldn't find me. They went to everyone who knew me until they found me and said, "Look, what's happened?" And I said, "Look, you know, this has happened." And then since then, I said to them, from that day, we'll always be good friends. So it's just, you know, there's an old guy that used to stand at the top of the road that I used to talk to, who'd fought in the war and everything. And just his stories would inspire me to say, "Hey, now, like, you know, you've got to make the best of what you've got. And if you really want things, like my dad used to say, if you want things in life, you can have anything you want. You've got the ability to get it." So yeah, that's
That I'm really, honestly, thank you for sharing it. There's so much out there at the moment for men to be strong, to, and I think I can't remember what it's, Jamie Lang did the big marathon last week, and what was beautiful about it was the fact that he showed his vulnerability. I have a beautiful, beautiful husband, and I like it. I love him on many different reasons, but I love him because he would accept that he's not happy, or he's struggling, or whatever. And I'm not going to go into it, but it's just that open honesty. There's so much pressure on men to be strong, and I embrace your vulnerability there, because it's really important to me as a woman. Funny enough, me as a woman, to respect, we talked about this before we went live, to respect the man, to not belittle my husband, to allow them to be who you are and to give you space. So thank you for sharing that vulnerability.
no problem at all.
Aha moments. We've all been there. We've all looked at life. We've gone, oh, why did I do that? Or we've had amazing opportunities that we've gone, actually, that's not right for me. You've already done that. I wondered if there's any aha moments that have changed completely the way that you do something.
Yeah, I feel like losing both my parents has, that was, I mean, I go over it all the time, but I just remember my childhood being like a good childhood. My parents worked super, super hard. So, you know, like sometimes you meet people and where they've come from, it's been a difficult story for them. I didn't really have that difficult story. So one of my friends, he laughs and he goes, "Oh, you know, you came from a little house on the prairie life," sort of thing. And you know, my parents, you know, they came to this country and they worked double hard. And I always thought to myself, like, you came here with nothing and you worked hard and you achieved, you know, to buy your own house. You had, you know, you worked until, you know, you sort of died. I don't have any excuses.
Yeah.
I don't have any excuses. You know, I'm sort of like, I'm born here. I've got good opportunities. If I choose not to take those opportunities, that's on me. But I don't want to be a hard luck story. I want to, you know, I'm in and around a lot of young kids, young women who they hang on sometimes to every word you say. So if I'm doing positive things, you know, I can grow and I can, you know, sometimes I can include them. So when we have our showcase games, if somebody's aspiring to be a photographer, we say, come and do the pictures. If they're inspiring to, like, you know, we've got a guy at the moment working with us, he's making a documentary. And I always remember him saying, why are you helping me? And I just felt to myself, because I was once you know, and it's just having, you know, doing stuff for myself that will allow me to open a few more doors for other people.
I absolutely, and this is why we're talking, right? Because when we first met, and you know, it was like you blew my mind by saying what you were doing, how you pay it forwards. That's the one thing I really took away from you, is how you pay it forwards, how you want to help, how you want to inspire. And I found that totally inspirational. And as I said right back at the beginning, sometimes you'll send me a message on a Friday and I go, oh yeah, that was just what I needed, because you know Fridays can be difficult. I'm normally standing freezing cold in the afternoon watching my daughters play some kind of sport match, going,
Yeah.
oh, it's freezing, or it's too hot, whatever, you know, it's Britain. And I have, you know, I have to, if they've lost, I have to pick her up. If they've won, then I have to go, don't boast, because it's not about boasting. This is a really important thing, actually. Someone was saying, in Britain, we tell children not to boast. And I'm like, go and enjoy that win, embrace that win, but
100%.
keep an element of humility. So it's not like, it's really fine line. I don't know if you can expand a little bit on that, probably better than I can, because you should celebrate that win. But there is a little bit of like, not boasting. I don't know how you do that. Have you got any ideas?
Yeah, so like literally when I've always played football at a good level of players, and after like sort of like a little bit of a lull, I said I'm going to go and join in. I'm going to look for a different group of guys who just want to play for fun. So I joined in with these guys who played on a Thursday. They were dads from a school. You know, don't get me wrong, some of them weren't great, but they just loved playing the game. And I just remember thinking, right, your level of competitiveness, you're going to have to bring it down. And I remember bringing it down, and, you know, they'd kind of look up to you and you could say one thing to them, like, well done, great pass, that's brilliant. And you could see them go, you know, shoulders would, you know, go up, chest. And it was kind of like, for me, it was, I'm still competitive, but in a controlled manner of the environment that I'm in. Because I remember one of my coaches saying to me, if you're a good player and you go in and the players are a little bit below your level, you will pull them up. So it's not a case of going in and because you've done this and you've done that, putting them down.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to do it. Go in there and use what you've been taught and pull them up. And that's, you know, that was a, you know, playing with those guys was a big turnaround for me, because I'm still competitive, but now it's in a really controlled manner. Because, you know, there were times I stormed off the pitch when we lost, and I would sit in the changing room and tell everyone how terrible they were, you know, because I just wanted to win. I couldn't comprehend losing. It just didn't sit well with me. But now it's kind of like I take the game kind of for what it is. And when I look at everyone enjoying it and smiling, whether they won or they've lost, that gives me like so much more satisfaction.
That is a brilliant bit of advice and a brilliant way of looking at it, lifting people up. And so many times in life, people squish. But
Yeah,
actually, we should all go out there and we should all lift people up. This is exactly what I try to do with my clients. I try to lift them up. It's about empower. Everybody can go on camera. And I mean that. Every single person can go on camera and every single person can post on social media. It's just about giving them the power and the confidence to do it. I absolutely love that. Lift them up. might we rename this whole episode Tony, the man who lifts people up, because that's what we do. So this is where the tables get turned. You've been in the hot seat. I bet you're not going to be surprised on this. 25 minutes you've already been in the hot seat for. Usually surprises people. You get to ask me a question and I get to see, and I'm going to do it. Can I, you get to kick the ball to me, can't resist it, and see if I can score a goal.
Okay, so
by the way, I can't kick a ball straight, so you know.
I can help you. I've always wondered why you've done this. That's always
the podcast or
the podcast, and do you know, like, because like I said, for I think you're a huge inspiration in getting people in front of the cameras, because my friends will tell you, even photographs, I don't do them. So you yeah. So I've always just wondered what you get from doing it. I understand what people get, but what do you yourself get from doing it?
So I get stories. So one of the things that, and I've always been honest about being spiritual. So there's a couple of things that are involved in this. One of them is years ago when I was exploring shamanism, somebody told me I was a storyteller, and I'm a collector of stories. And so I now have 95 different people's stories, and I get to share them with the world. So one of them is about storytelling, because a foundation of what I believe when it comes to your marketing, on camera, whatever you're doing, your website, you're telling a story. And so many people say they haven't got a story, but actually we all have. So that's the first thing, is allowing people to tell and share their story. Your story will inspire somebody else. And if we are quiet and we keep it insular and we don't share it, then the world can't be a better place, because stories make the world a better place. Goodness, lifting people up rather than squashing people down. In a world full of darkness, this little podcast, all 95 episodes, are stories of hope. And so it's about lifting people up. The other thing is, a lot of people who come on the podcast are petrified to go on camera. And so this is me holding their hand. This is me saying, come into my safe place, and I will lift you up, and I will hold you, and I will get you over your fear of posting on camera. I will get you over your fear of going live. I will get you over your fear of going on YouTube. So a lot of it is about lifting people up, getting them over that first hurdle. And the other thing is that actually I really enjoy it, because although I've teamed my ego, and that's what you talk about with your competitiveness, I've pulled my ego back. I will always be a performer. No matter who I am, no matter where I go, I will always be the actor. I will never get away from that. I love performing, and this is the closest I can get to keeping that energy, that presenting, because I did presenting as well, keeping that, which allows me to fill my soul with my soul food and makes my husband's life a darn sight easier, because otherwise I'm a hell of a something to live with. How was that?
I can't. Yeah, I think you summed it up. Yeah, it's always just, like when somebody asks me, why are you helping me? You always wonder, I don't want to say, I find on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people that are out for themselves and want to sort of ride on your back to get to where, they want to be. So I just find it so refreshing and nice when somebody's actually doing something, because it's not a financial gain for them. It's a satisfaction. It's a satisfaction gain. We just live in a society where it is about, what can someone do for you? Why can't we just do things for people and just see them, excel and get to where they want to be? That's an achievement in itself, if you can help people get to where they want to be.
I have a whole thing that I will happily finish this podcast on, which is for anyone who wants to maximize on the back of me to try and get their growth. I let you, because it doesn't bother me. If somebody wants to copy my post and rewrite it and use it as their own, okay, we'll just call it imitation. Is the biggest flattery you can give me, because let them. And I know that's Breon Brown's, but I've been doing let them for about 30 years. So, let them. And I'm not jumping on the back of that. I really have. For the time I walked out on my first marriage, I decided to embrace let him, so let them. And I think it's important to just not get bothered by it. There is plenty of space in the world for all of us. If you can't be 100% unique, I'll copy from the best.
Yeah, it's just we live in that society, don't we, where I suppose you got to let them get on with it at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. It's been an absolute blast. We have had a comment, but unfortunately I can't see the name, but it's from somebody who knows you, because it says, great to see this, mate. So somebody you know has checked in today. Brilliant.
Can you not see who it is? No,
I can't. It just says LinkedIn user, which is really frustrating. But when we finish this, you'll be able to go onto the LinkedIn and see who it is. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
All right, Kirsty, nice one.
And you.
Take it easy. Take